Hello, everybody. This is Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. Today, we had a news conference with House Republicans from both the House and Senate Republicans talking about the debt crisis and what's happening in the negotiations. We're going to start out. I'm going to give you three parts on this, so hang through this. It's only going to be about 10 minutes. First part's going to be Chip Roy laying out what's at stake. I think this is really important to set the stage.
But throughout his posturing, the president has failed to realize the most fundamental and important truth, that the core of this debate is not whether the federal government will default on its debt. It won't. But whether we will continue to allow this nation to default on the American dream. The truth is the dream is out of reach for too many Americans. And the biggest obstacle is the very government entrusted to protect it. So we gather here today on a bicameral basis to send a message to the president. This legislation is purposeful, not political. We stand for the hardworking American family unable to afford groceries, gas, housing, or health care because of inflation fueled by trillions of dollars in reckless spending. The plumber that never took out a student loan but is now being forced to pay for his neighbor's master's degree, or the veteran paying for a liberal arts major to get the same student loan benefits he earned by risking his life for his country. The nurse who wants to save lives without a federal bureaucrat saying she has to take a needle. The blue-collar workers watching their way of life sacrificed to the altar of climate fetish, while billions of tax dollars of corporate tax credits go to crony subsidies in the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. The rancher in Texas putting diesel in his truck but forced to subsidize a tech worker making six figures to buy a Tesla hundreds of miles away. Minority and poor taxpayers trying to make ends meet that an expanded IRS audits 3 to 5 times more than other Americans. We're standing up for the Americans who simply want their country back. And all they ask is that we stop recklessly spending money we do not have, racking up debt, weakening the dollar, driving up inflation, all to fund the very bureaucracy weaponized against their way of life, as we saw yesterday unfold regarding the FBI. We passed the Limit, Save, Grow Act to do just that, to shrink Washington and grow America. We did our job. Now it's time for the president to do his.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. And it lays it out what's at stake and how the American dream has become a distant, it's almost a myth to some as they see their hopes and aspirations slipping away under the crush of big government and spending. Speaker McCarthy then now comes up and he's going to tell you what's actually in this act that's such a common sense approach that you'd think even Joe Biden would be able to figure it out. Here's Speaker McCarthy.
Yes, sir.
So while Republicans have proposed this plan to the president, you still have Democrats who are still trying to put certain different plans for federal spending, looking at things like FMLA. They're still trying to put that on the table. Is there still an avenue that Republicans would entertain those federal programs, or is that something that's completely off limits?
Look, the way the founders created this government, which is so amazing, the House passes.
Okay, here's he's going to be talking. Let's just keep listening because I got this clip wrong.
The bill, the Senate could pass a bill, and then we could go to conference. Unfortunately, the Senate under Schumer, the only thing I think they've passed, what I've noticed is March is Maine maple syrup month. I don't know if they want that in the bill or not, but I would entertain that. There's nothing to go to conference with a Democrat idea. And the sad part, when I sit with the Democrats, their ideas are old. You know what they think? We should just tax more. But anyone who would look at what's going on, if you look at the 50-year average of what comes in from the taxpayer of America, normally we bring in 17% of our GDP. Right now, we're bringing almost 20%. Do you know how many times in modern history that has ever happened? That much? Only 2 times.
Okay, hold on. I want to just emphasize that point. Currently, our revenues are about 20% of GDP. 20% of GDP. Now he's going to say this and he's going to make the point, but I want you to hear that. Historically, it's been 17% of GDP. There's only been 2 times in history. 2 times in history when the tax revenues have been that much for GDP. That's important because those who want to tax us more are missing the point. Here he'll make it.
1944 and 2000. But if you look at how much this government is spending, on a 50-year average, we usually spend 21% of GDP. He's at 23.6 going to 25. It is not a revenue problem. It is a spending problem.
And there you go. This isn't a revenue problem. It is a spending problem. See if I've got that clip with Kevin McCarthy talking, and unfortunately I don't. So I'm going to go right back and I'm going to give it to you because I know exactly where it is. Boom. Okay.
Well done, Chip.
But I don't want to hear
She's a
it.
new mom. It's her first Mother's Day. I don't know if you've ever met Sam, happiest guy you've ever seen. But you know what? When Sam was born, he was handed a bill for $94,000.
That's how much each child is born right now. That's their portion of the national debt, $94,000. That's what he's talking about in terms of Sam, a newborn, having a bill of $94,000. That's not healthcare. That's national debt that Sam now owes. He hasn't spent a dime. He's just starting life, but that's how much money we're saying, gee, welcome to the world, Sam. $94,000 in debt on your shoulders.
$94,000 to every new child born in America. That's the legacy that's being left. But we decided enough is enough. We actually want to give them a future, give them an opportunity, give them the ability to go further than the generation before them. And this is the moment in time to make that stand. The only question is whether we have a Biden default or not. It's the president himself. We passed something reasonable and sensible. All we say is let's spend what we were spending 5 months ago. Let's save, and the money that we have appropriated that hasn't been spent for 2 months, let's bring it back to the hardworking taxpayer. Let's put some caps on what the future Congresses can spend. Let them spend more, but only grow by 1%. And let's unshackle what holds the greatness of this nation back to build. Let's cut the red tape to have that permitting reform. And you know what? Let's help those that need a challenge to take them from poverty to a job. We've known it works. We've seen it work before. Let's not settle for what we have today. Inflation, dependency on China, runaway spending. Let's know what America can be and let's achieve it. With that, let's take some questions. Yes, sir.
Wow, there you go. When you get down to it, folks, this is pretty simple. And I want to give you a tool to be able to contact your members of Congress and get them involved. This is really important. If you go to getliberty.org, you see it right there on the screen. I'd encourage you to just click on another tab, open it up, go to getliberty.org right now. And if you go there, and you'll see $31 trillion debt, cut spending now. And if you click on, first of all, if you put your email in there and submit, you'll get our stuff every single day and you'll love it. And it provides a lot of different information for you, including a lot of the videos we do, cartoons and other things. But if you go to this, click on that button, you'll be taken to this page. I've already filled it out, so you can see I already contacted my members, but this is what it looks like. You fill it out and you send an email to your 2 senators and 1 member of the House, supporting Limit, Save, Grow. I'm writing from Virginia, so that's who one of the senators are. Then you hit the Take Action button. Now I'm going to tell you first, if you want to share this, just you can share it on Facebook, you can share it to people who follow you on Twitter, and you can send it as an email to click that and allow you to send it as an email to anybody in your email list. So you can spread the word. Spreading the word is everything. We have the power in our own Facebook lists, in our own YouTube follower list, in our own Twitter follower list, in our own email list. We have the power to exponentially drive this agenda and to get people involved who care but don't know how to get involved. You're on this video. You care and you know how to get involved. So this is a way you can help your friends do the same. So if you click the Take Action, it's going to take you somewhere. I don't want people to get confused. Okay. It's going to take you to a donation page. The Take Action has already occurred. That's already happened. This fundraising page is simply to allow us to have the money so we can then take this and push it out and get others involved throughout who are all over the internet and be able to run the kind of ad campaigns to drive the message to Congress We want you to cut spending now, get this thing under control, and stop screwing around. That's an important message. And it's an important message that needs to be heard. And so every dollar that you put into this is going to go toward that end. And that's my promise to you. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of this. And I wanted to just let you know, because sometimes things get a little confusing and everybody gets messed up. And ultimately, from my point of view, we can do this together. This is a fight that we have to engage in together. I think when you listen to what Chip Roy said and what's at stake in terms of the future, in terms of how America is going to be, what is America going to be for future generations? I think you just have to listen to what Joe Biden has to say. When he says this is a battle for the soul of America, Joe Biden is right. You'll never hear me say that, but Joe Biden is right. This is a battle for the soul of America. And we need you to be in this battle and sharing it with your friends. The single most important thing you can do, I'd love for you to give money, but the single most important thing you can do is not give money. Please do if you're so inclined. It's to share this with as many people as you have and you can get to, because we are going to win this by exponentially flooding this Congress with a demand that they take action, that they not raise taxes, and that they cut spending in a reasonable way and only allow future growth of spending at 1% a year for the next 10 years. That gets us on a pathway to fiscal sanity. It doesn't get us all the way there, but it gets on a pathway. That's what happened today. It was a great day in terms of making the case. And guess what? We still don't have, Joe Biden's still putting off any real negotiations. There's nothing happening in terms of the negotiations now, because what Joe Biden's betting, he's betting that when he's going to run this to June 2, and they're going to say, oh, we're going to default on the debt, and all the newspapers and everybody will be all upset, and he won't have negotiated, and somehow that the Congress will cave and they'll kick the can down the road and say, oh, well, Joe, we're all have goodwill. Fact is, Joe Biden doesn't have goodwill on this. This is a big lie. He spent over 100 days not negotiating, not figuring it out. And now he's putting us to the very edge of a cliff and saying, oh, there's a cliff. Well, it's a cliff you created, bud. And America's not going to default on our debt. That's garbage. But if we don't start trimming our spending, we will have to cut and default on our debt, because the spending we're doing is not sustainable. We all know how that works. It's not sustainable. And trust me, the banks are going to get their cut, and the people who are going to be harmed are those who are the social safety net, who are dependent upon the social safety net. Those are the people who end up being harmed the most. We've seen that in Greece. We've seen that across the world, that every time a country gets in fiscal trouble, the people who are on Social Security end up in trouble. And it's because their legislatures weren't responsible and didn't do what was necessary before they went off the cliff. Joe Biden wants to kick the can. He thinks he can. He thinks he can get away with playing politics with usual. He can't. Tell him he can't. Get involved, and that's what we have for you today. I really appreciate all you do, and these members are really just doing a great job. And just, I have to tell you, Speaker McCarthy, a guy who a few years ago you sat there, he didn't seem to be able to speak, has become pretty eloquent in defending basic principles of this country. Thank goodness for that. With that, we're going to sign off. And oh, by the way, if you are so inclined, if you're on YouTube, please share these things on YouTube. Encourage others to follow us on YouTube. Encourage others to follow us on Facebook. Encourage others to follow us on Truth Social and on Rumble, because we're following is growing exponentially. We're getting massive growth in that. And the more people following, the more punch we have. And when we get more punch, the fist becomes more powerful, and we're able to drive messages harder into Congress, because ultimately we're about winning. We're about winning, winning, winning. And this is a fight we have to win. With that, have a great day. And this is Rick Manning signing off.